hear folks like Gretchen who are basically syndicating their content to a lot of different blogs, and that content then becomes less unique because it's repeated over and over again. So I'm just wondering if you would comment on it.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. One is unique content has more to do with unique content within a domain. So if you have the same page with a bunch of different URLs in your own site, that's something that you get penalized for. So if you had randomhouse.com/sues, and in 6 different places had the same summary of how the Grinch stole Christmas, that's something that is considered repetitive content that's penalized, which is different than the actual having the content all over the place on the web isn't going to hurt you. And this is one of those places where there is perhaps, let's say that you get penalized on SEO terms by having your post on your own site, Slate, and Upload at the same time. Be that as it may, any place where there's a decision to be made between doing something for SEO purposes and doing something because it seems smart, you can just do the smart thing. I mean, there are ways to tailor your message that's going to be particularly useful and clear for SEO. Just a couple, again, if you guys do nothing but use Bitly and shorten your titles and your descriptions after this, that's fine. You've gotten the basic stuff that's going to be useful for you for SEO. But more than anything else, you just want people to read your stuff. And one place they're going to come to it is SEO, again, is also only for people who are looking for something specific. An ideal way of creating demand is when they have no idea, is when someone sees the Happiness Project on Slate, having never heard of it, which is irrelevant in SEO terms.
But should Gretchen, for instance, when she syndicates out to Slate or to Huffington Post, should she alter the content so it's not exactly what was on the blog?
Well, that's something that I was actually going to say in relation to the book that you mentioned about relationship sex. You said Psychology Today, Playboy Radio, and
Good Housekeeping.
Good Housekeeping.
It's just totally different on each.
So, well, right, exactly. So, would you modify the stuff for that? This is just another one of those places where SEO and common sense interact. Yeah, you would. And would that help you for SEO? Maybe, I don't know. But even if it doesn't, Playboy and Good Housekeeping have slightly different audiences. And you want to speak to those audiences in their language. So I think that's something that becomes important there. And again, that's where I would say, if something makes common sense and it'll help you with SEO, go ahead and do it. If something seems wrong to you, like writing a web page is just filled with keywords that doesn't make sense because someone told you this is good for SEO. If someone went to Esquire's office and said, oh, you should use Maxim's keywords, that probably isn't the best idea, regardless of what the SEO benefits are.
Fine. How are we doing on timing? We don't want to keep everybody. Should we do one last question?
Is this PowerPoint available on the website?
I'll make it available.
Yeah,
And we'll make it available on the
post
website.
it on ours. And we'll also be posting the video as well. So, I think.
No questions?
Oh.
Can you talk about quickly just XML sitemaps and whether that's going to work? And I've been reading about that for SEO. Is that going to be negotiating DTV to do it?
Yeah, I don't think so. The question was about XML sitemaps and whether or not that's useful for you. So what an XML sitemap is a link on your site somewhere that a search engine can go to that provides all the content in your site in XML format. So that's not something that a human being is going to see. It's something that a search engine is going to look at, and it's an easy way for them to see what the deep content is on your site. And that's particularly useful in sites that are very complex, have a lot of pages, and have a lot of buried content. But again, the answer there is search engines would only need the XML sitemap if it were difficult to start up your homepage and link through to any particular page.
It's also a technical thing where there's very quick technical fixes, like little plugins that you can do, put on your site, and it just sort of automatically takes care of it.
Right. But the reason that I was saying, think about what an XML sitemap does. An XML sitemap says, from the homepage to this post 3 months ago on this topic is 7 steps, and here are the 7 steps. And the reason you'd have the sitemap is that starting on the homepage, you wouldn't necessarily be able to know what those 7 clicks were that you had to do. If that's the case, don't get an XML sitemap. Fix your page so it's easier to find the content, which will help you for SEO purposes and make it easier for your users to navigate. So in that situation, I would say, go for the redesign rather than sitemap.
Hanny, I think one thing we didn't really cover was sort of, I think I found important with our own site and other sites I've done is frequency of content.
Okay. Yeah, that question came up briefly, frequency of content, and that is an absolutely crucial one. I mean, creating a stale site is never going to be useful, and where this is particularly important, the new model for sales that we're going to have using these types of things, if we're talking about promoting a book because of allowing somebody to search on terms that are related to it, ask questions about it, and find it, is no longer finite in time the way that a book launch used to be. You know, it's not about that first week anymore. So a website that's created for a book launch with the hopes that it's going to be tethered to a Today Show appearance, 6 reviews, and such isn't really what's going on. It's about creating and maintaining a dynamic website that's always there so that you have a consistent series of sales for a long time.
Well, I was going to add that another reason that's key is just a very technical, pragmatic one, that if you have a constantly refreshing stream of content, is that Google will pick up on that and start to visit you more frequently and therefore reflect the content in your site. So if you have things going on in the world that are very dynamic and you're trying to be relevant to that with your site, say it's your friend, the white guy growing up in Zimbabwe, and there's something going on in the world, and if you have a site that has a pattern of being relatively refreshed quickly, Google's going to pick up on that. So when some world event happens that's relevant to that story, you can adapt your site with fresh content. Google will very quickly see it, and you make yourself that much more visible to relevant searchers seeking that information. And we see it happen in our own business all the time. It's very important.
So you think then, is it better to have sites dedicated to individual books or sites dedicated to topics that books can be plugged into?
I think that the topics are winning. And again, that's going to be very nonfiction specific, but I really do think that unless you have a title that doesn't need SEO because it's doing so well that people will be searching for the title anyway, that you want, what people look for when they go on a search network is a topic, not a title. So if you have a book, and why people read the books is because they're interested in the topic, not the publisher, the publication date, and this review, and such, and all the rest of it, the kind of stuff that ends up on a book homepage. So absolutely, I would say a site that's not only created for the launch for the topic, but maintained and continues to pick up sales, like Max is saying. The next time something happens in Zimbabwe, someone goes to Douglas's blog and finds it.
Some of the best examples of that are where the franchise became a book or the book launched a franchise. So, Seth Godin's example, he actually just regurgitates blog posts and writes little books. In a few months, we're having one of your follow-up events with Stephen Baker, who created a franchise called the Numerati, which is about studying mathematicians. The book is sort of a central piece in an ongoing analysis of mathematicians. Freakonomics is another example, and they sort of licensed that franchise to the Times.com. But I think you've seen that happen, with some of the a lot of success stories around that.